You're being watched, even when no one is looking at you. The way you walk into a room, the way you react when someone interrupts you, the way you laugh, hesitate, explain yourself. All of it is being silently judged. And according to Machiavellian psychology, most people lose respect not because they are weak, but because they unknowingly reveal weakness in public. Machiavelli understood something brutal about human nature. People don't respect who you truly are. They respect the image you project. And once that image cracks, even slightly, people begin to treat you differently. History remembers Niccolò Machiavelli as ruthless, cold, manipulative, but what he really was observant. He studied kings, generals, nobles, and crowds. He noticed how power was gained, and more importantly, how it was lost, not through defeat, but through small public mistakes. A ruler laughs too much. A leader explains himself. A powerful man reacts emotionally, and suddenly, people stop fearing him. They stop respecting him. They begin testing him. This is how authority collapses, not in private, but in public. Because public behavior writes your reputation, and reputation decides how the world treats you. There are things you should never do in public, not because they are immoral, but because they weaken your psychological position. They make people subconsciously lower your status. They invite disrespect. They make you predictable, controllable, forgettable. Machiavelli warned rulers about these behaviors. But today, they apply to everyone. At work, in social circles, in business, in relationships, even among strangers. Because human nature hasn't changed. People still admire control. They still respect mystery. They still fear calm confidence. And they still lose respect the moment they sense insecurity. Imagine two people entering a room. One talks loudly, explains everything, tries to impress, laughs nervously, fills silence with words. The other says very little, observes, moves slowly, reacts calmly, speaks only when necessary. Without knowing anything else, the room already decides who holds more power. This is the psychology Machiavelli mastered. And today, you'll understand 9 things you should never do in public if you want to maintain authority, respect, and psychological advantage. Because once you see these mistakes, you'll start noticing them everywhere. You'll see them in coworkers trying too hard. You'll see them in leaders losing control. You'll see them in conversations where someone unknowingly lowers themselves. And most importantly, you'll stop doing them yourself. The first mistake is subtle, harmless on the surface. Almost everyone does it, and yet it quietly destroys how people perceive you. It is the habit of over-explaining yourself. Machiavelli observed that powerful figures never justify their actions unnecessarily. They state, they decide, they move forward. But weak figures feel the need to explain everything. They defend themselves even when no one accuses them. They talk longer than needed. They try to make everyone understand. And in doing so, they reveal insecurity. Imagine a meeting. Someone proposes an idea, then immediately starts explaining why it makes sense, then explains again, then adds more reasoning, then tries to convince everyone. The more they talk, the less confident they appear. Meanwhile, someone else states a simple idea and stops talking. Silence follows, and that silence creates authority, because silence suggests certainty. Over-explaining suggests doubt. Machiavelli understood that words dilute power. The more you justify yourself, the more you appear uncertain, and uncertainty invites challenge. This is why powerful individuals speak less, not because they lack ideas, but because they understand perception. When you over-explain in public, you unintentionally communicate that you need approval, that you want validation, that you're unsure whether your words carry weight. And people sense this instantly. They may not consciously realize it, but they begin interrupting you more, questioning you more, respecting you less. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must appear decisive, even when uncertain internally, because hesitation encourages opposition. The same applies socially. When you speak briefly, you appear confident. When you speak endlessly, you appear defensive. This doesn't mean being silent always. It means speaking with intention, saying only what strengthens your position, removing the need to convince everyone. Because persuasion is strongest when it's quiet. Another mistake people make in public is showing emotional reactions too quickly. Machiavelli believed emotional control was one of the most powerful psychological weapons. Not because emotions are bad, but because visible reactions reveal your triggers. And once people know your triggers, they control you. Imagine someone makes a sarcastic comment. If you react instantly, defend yourself, show irritation, you've just revealed where you're vulnerable. Now they know exactly how to provoke you. But if you remain calm, neutral, slightly amused. You give them nothing. No reaction. No leverage. No control. Machiavelli warned leaders never to display anger impulsively. Because anger removes mystery, it exposes intention. It makes behavior predictable. And predictability reduces power. People respect those who remain composed under pressure. Because calmness signals confidence. It suggests you are not easily shaken, that you are not emotionally dependent on others. Public emotional reactions do the opposite. They show that others can influence your internal state, that words affect you, that criticism bothers you, that approval matters to you. And once people know that, they start using it. This is why Machiavellian psychology values emotional restraint, not coldness, but control. The most respected person in the room is usually not the loudest, not the funniest, not the most expressive. It's the one who reacts the least, because they remain unpredictable, and unpredictability creates psychological distance. Distance creates authority. Another dangerous behavior in public is trying too hard to be liked. This is one of the most common mistakes. People smile constantly, agree with everyone, laugh at every joke, avoid disagreement. They try to maintain harmony, and ironically, this reduces respect. Machiavelli believed being liked is fragile. Being respected is durable. When you prioritize being liked, you start compromising your position. You soften your opinions. You avoid confrontation. You adapt to others constantly. People sense this flexibility and interpret it as weakness, because if someone always agrees, they appear dependent. If someone never challenges, they appear subordinate. Respect grows when people see boundaries, calm disagreement, independent thinking. Trying too hard to be liked removes those signals. Machiavelli famously argued that it is safer to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both, not literal fear, but psychological seriousness, the sense that you cannot be easily manipulated. When you try too hard to be liked, you lose that seriousness. You become predictable, easy to influence, easy to dismiss. People may enjoy your presence, but they won't value your authority. This is why powerful individuals don't chase approval. They allow silence. They allow disagreement. They don't rush to fill tension. And that tension creates presence. Another mistake, speaking about your plans too openly in public. Machiavelli warned rulers to keep intentions hidden. Because once people know your plan, they either resist it or compete with it. The same applies socially. When you announce your goals loudly, you lose psychological advantage. People judge you prematurely. Some doubt you. Some secretly hope you fail. Some begin comparing themselves. Your plan becomes public pressure. But when you move quietly, you maintain mystery. People see results, not promises. Machiavelli understood that surprise strengthens power. Predictability weakens it. This is why powerful individuals speak less about what they will do, and more through what they have already done. Public ambition without results invites skepticism. Quiet action builds intrigue, and intrigue attracts respect. There's also another subtle behavior, joking too much at your own expense. Self-deprecating humor seems harmless. It appears confident, but used excessively in public, it lowers your perceived status. Machiavelli observed that people treat you based on the image you reinforce. If you repeatedly portray yourself as incompetent, clumsy, unlucky, people begin associating you with those traits. Even jokingly, humor shapes perception, especially repeated humor. When you constantly make yourself the punchline, you train others to see you as less dominant, less serious, less authoritative. This doesn't mean never joking, but controlling the narrative. Powerful individuals may use humor, but rarely at their own expense repeatedly. They maintain dignity. They avoid reinforcing weakness publicly, because reputation is built through repetition, and public jokes become subconscious labels. Another mistake is revealing too much personal information too quickly. Machiavelli believed mystery creates psychological advantage. The less people know, the harder it is to predict you, the harder it is to manipulate you. But when you overshare in public, you remove that mystery. You talk about fears, struggles, problems, insecurities, past failures. And while vulnerability can build connection, public oversharing often reduces authority. People categorize you based on what you reveal. They remember your insecurities. They remember your doubts. They remember your weaknesses. And unconsciously, they adjust how they treat you. Machiavelli understood that information is power, and giving away information freely weakens your position. The most respected individuals reveal themselves, slowly, selectively, intentionally. They allow people to wonder, to interpret, to project strength. Oversharing removes that illusion, and illusion is part of power. Another behavior that destroys respect in public reacting to disrespect immediately. This seems counterintuitive. Many believe you must respond instantly, defend yourself, show strength. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. Immediate reaction shows emotional dependence. Delayed response shows control. When someone disrespects you publicly, and you respond instantly, you appear triggered, controlled, pulled into their frame. But when you pause, look calmly, and respond minimally, you reverse the power dynamic. Silence forces them to feel awkward. Calmness forces them to second guess. Minimal response keeps your dignity intact. Machiavelli admired leaders who punish strategically, not emotionally. The same principle applies socially. Respond, but never react impulsively. Because impulsive reaction gives them satisfaction. Calm response preserves your authority, and authority is built through control. This is where most people fail in public. They think strength is loud. They think confidence is expressive. They think dominance is aggressive. But Machiavellian psychology reveals the opposite. True psychological power is quiet, controlled, minimal, observant. It is the person who speaks last, the person who reacts least, the person who reveals little, and because of that, people project authority onto them. These small public behaviors decide whether people test you, respect you, or ignore you, and most don't even realize they're doing them. They laugh too loudly, explain too much, react too fast, share too openly, seek approval unconsciously, and slowly, their public image weakens. Machiavelli didn't teach manipulation for cruelty. He taught awareness. He understood that society judges appearances. That power comes from perception. That reputation is built publicly. And once reputation forms, it's difficult to change. This is why mastering public behavior matters. Because every interaction shapes how people rank you mentally, not consciously, but instinctively. And once you understand this, you start moving differently. You speak less, observe more, react slower, reveal selectively, and people begin treating you differently without knowing why. There is a moment, subtle and almost invisible, where people decide how much they respect you. It doesn't happen when you introduce yourself. It doesn't happen when you speak. It happens when something unexpected occurs, and everyone watches how you respond. Machiavelli understood that power is not tested during calm moments, but during uncertainty, when plans change, when someone challenges you, when attention suddenly shifts. These are the moments where people unconsciously evaluate your stability. And one of the worst things you can do in public is showing visible nervousness when attention turns toward you. This nervousness appears in small ways. You adjust your posture repeatedly. You laugh awkwardly. You speak faster. You look around for validation. You fill silence with unnecessary words. You rush to prove yourself. None of these actions seem dramatic, but together, they communicate something powerful. They signal discomfort with attention. And in Machiavellian psychology, discomfort with attention reduces perceived authority, because authority thrives in stillness. Confidence looks calm under observation. When someone appears relaxed while being watched, people assume inner strength. But when someone appears restless, they seem uncertain. Imagine a room falls silent and everyone looks at one person. One individual shifts, smiles nervously, and begins talking quickly. Another remains composed, pauses, and speaks slowly, without any context. The second person appears more confident. Machiavelli studied leaders who commanded presence without speaking. He noticed they rarely rushed. They allowed silence. They tolerated attention. They never looked like they were seeking approval. Because seeking approval lowers status. When you show nervousness in public, you unintentionally ask the crowd to accept you. You invite judgment. You surrender psychological control. Calmness does the opposite. Calmness suggests you don't need permission to exist in that space. This is why powerful individuals often move slower. Not artificially, but deliberately. They pause before responding. They don't rush to fill silence. They appear comfortable being observed. And comfort under observation creates presence, another behavior that weakens you in public. Interrupting others impulsively. This might sound like dominance. Many believe interrupting shows confidence. But Machiavelli observed something different. Impulsive interruption often reveals insecurity. It signals that you fear losing attention, that you must assert yourself quickly, that you cannot wait your turn. And people sense this urgency. True authority doesn't rush to speak. It allows others to finish. It listens calmly. Then it speaks. And when it speaks, people listen. Interrupting too often makes you appear reactive, controlled by impulse, desperate to maintain relevance. Machiavelli admired rulers who allowed others to speak fully, because it revealed information It exposed intentions. It gave strategic advantage. Interrupting destroys that advantage. It replaces observation with impulse. It also creates subtle resentment. People feel dismissed. They feel overpowered. And over time, they begin resisting you psychologically. Meanwhile, the person who listens silently gains something more valuable than attention. They gain respect, because listening calmly signals control. It shows patience. It shows you are not competing for dominance. You already possess it. Another dangerous mistake in public. Constantly checking reactions. You say something, then look around. You make a joke, then scan faces. You share an idea, then wait nervously for approval. This behavior is extremely common and extremely damaging because it communicates dependence. When you constantly monitor reactions, you show that your confidence relies on external validation. You need smiles, nods, agreement. And once people sense that, they subconsciously lower your status. Machiavelli believed powerful figures shape perception. They don't chase it. They don't adjust themselves every second. They don't constantly measure approval. They express calmly and allow silence. Silence is powerful because it forces others to react first. When you look around seeking reaction, you surrender that power. You become the one waiting, the one hoping, the one uncertain. But when you speak and remain composed, people fill the silence. They respond. They adjust to you. This is the psychology of authority. The person who waits holds power. The person who seeks loses it. Another mistake, apologizing excessively in public. Politeness is not weakness, but constant apologizing signals insecurity. You apologize for speaking. You apologize for interrupting slightly. You apologize for asking questions. You apologize for existing in the conversation. Each apology lowers your perceived confidence. Machiavelli observed that powerful figures rarely apologize unnecessarily. They correct mistakes, but they don't diminish themselves repeatedly. Excessive apologizing creates the impression that you feel inferior, that you believe you're inconveniencing others, that you're unsure of your place, and people mirror that perception. They begin treating you as lower status, interrupting more, overlooking you, dismissing your input. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance. It means assuming you belong. When you stop apologizing unnecessarily, you silently communicate self-worth, and self-worth influences respect. Another behavior that destroys presence. Fidgeting excessively in public. This includes tapping fingers, adjusting clothes repeatedly, shifting constantly, playing with objects, looking down frequently. These movements seem minor, but they reveal inner tension. Machiavelli believed stillness communicates control. When someone remains physically calm, people perceive mental calmness. Stillness suggests you are comfortable, that you are not anxious, that you are grounded. Excessive movement does the opposite. It reveals restlessness, nervousness, lack of control. This is why powerful speakers often use minimal movement. They gesture deliberately. They pause. They hold eye contact. They remain composed. Because physical calmness translates into psychological authority. Even silence combined with stillness can dominate a room. Another subtle mistake. Laughing too quickly. This seems harmless, friendly even. But laughing immediately at everything signals eagerness to please. You laugh before others do. You laugh loudly. You laugh to fill silence. This communicates submission. Machiavelli understood that controlled humor strengthens authority, but uncontrolled laughter weakens it. When someone laughs constantly, they appear eager for connection. They signal dependence. They reduce their seriousness. Meanwhile, the person who smiles slightly, laughs rarely, and remains composed, appears more confident. This doesn't mean suppressing joy. It means controlling expression. Because expression shapes perception. Another behavior Machiavelli would warn against, defending yourself against minor criticism publicly. Someone makes a small remark, a light joke, a minor critique. If you immediately defend yourself, explain, justify, you amplify the criticism. You show it affected you, and now everyone notices. But when you remain calm, ignore, or respond lightly, the remark loses power. Machiavelli understood that attention feeds opposition. When you react strongly, you give importance to the attack. Calm dismissal removes its impact. Powerful individuals choose which battles to fight publicly. They ignore minor challenges. They respond only when necessary. Because reacting to everything shows insecurity, and insecurity invites more challenges. Another mistake, trying to dominate every conversation. Many believe talking the most equals power, but Machiavelli observed the opposite. The most powerful person often speaks the least. Because silence creates intrigue, it makes others curious. It forces them to seek your opinion. When you dominate conversation, You remove mystery. You reveal everything. You exhaust attention. People stop valuing your words. But when you speak selectively, your words gain weight. Machiavelli admired leaders whose few words carried impact. They didn't need to fill space. Their presence alone commanded attention. This is psychological economy. Fewer words, more authority, and finally, one of the most dangerous public mistakes, showing desperation to prove your worth. You mention achievements repeatedly. You highlight your skills constantly. You remind others of your value. This behavior signals insecurity, because those confident in their worth don't need to announce it repeatedly. Machiavelli understood that reputation grows stronger when others talk about you, not when you talk about yourself. When you constantly prove your worth, you appear unsure of it. But when you allow your actions to speak, people assign value naturally. This creates authentic authority. Machiavellian psychology isn't about manipulation. It's about perception. People don't analyze deeply. They observe signals, small behaviors, subtle reactions. And from those, they build an image. That image determines whether they respect you, test you, or ignore you. And public behavior shapes that image instantly. Stay calm, and you appear confident. Speak less, and you appear thoughtful. Reveal little, and you appear mysterious. React slowly, and you appear in control. These are silent signals of power. Most people never realize how much these behaviors matter. They focus on what to say, not how they behave. But Machiavelli understood. Behavior speaks louder than words. You don't need to declare authority. You demonstrate it. And when you stop making these public mistakes, people feel something different about you. They hesitate before interrupting. They listen when you speak. They respect your silence, not because you demanded it, but because you projected it. There is something even more dangerous than saying the wrong thing in public. It's communicating weakness, without speaking at all. Machiavelli understood that power is often decided before words are even exchanged. Before you speak, before you act, people already sense your position. They read posture, movement, eye contact, stillness, timing. And one of the most damaging things you can do in public is shrinking your presence. You lower your shoulders slightly. You avoid eye contact. You move aside too quickly. You sit smaller than necessary. You hesitate before entering conversations. These behaviors seem polite, respectful, harmless. But psychologically, they signal submission. Machiavelli studied courts filled with nobles competing silently for influence. He noticed that those who physically reduced themselves were rarely taken seriously. They appeared uncertain of their place. They communicated low status without saying a word. Meanwhile, individuals who occupied space naturally, who moved calmly, who maintained eye contact without aggression, were perceived as more authoritative. Presence is not about dominance. It's about comfort. When you appear comfortable in your space, people assume you belong there. When you appear unsure, they unconsciously place you lower in the social hierarchy. This is why powerful individuals don't rush to move aside. They don't fold inward. They don't disappear physically. They stand relaxed, sit calmly, maintain neutral eye contact. They neither challenge nor retreat, and this balance creates silent authority. Another mistake, mirroring insecurity. In public settings, people unconsciously copy each other. If someone speaks nervously, others may become nervous. If someone laughs excessively, others follow. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. When you mirror insecurity, you absorb it. If someone doubts themselves and you immediately agree, you lower your own position. If someone complains and you join quickly, you attach yourself to negativity. Powerful individuals mirror selectively. They don't adopt nervous energy. They remain stable. This stability makes them anchors in social environments. People gravitate toward calmness, toward predictability, toward emotional control. When you mirror insecurity, you lose that anchor position. Another subtle but dangerous public behavior, rushing to fill silence. Silence makes many people uncomfortable. Conversations pause, and someone immediately speaks, often unnecessarily. They explain again, repeat points, add filler, ask random questions. This rush to fill silence signals discomfort. Machiavelli understood silence is not weakness. Silence creates tension, and tension draws attention. When you remain calm in silence, others begin watching you. They wait for you. Your eventual words gain weight. But when you rush to speak, you remove that tension. You reduce your impact. Powerful figures allow silence to exist. They don't fear it. They use it. Silence communicates confidence, because only those comfortable with themselves can tolerate it. Another mistake, reacting to group pressure instantly. Imagine a group laughs at something. You laugh too. Even if you didn't understand. Someone criticizes a person. You agree quickly. A trend emerges. You follow immediately. This behavior shows conformity. Machiavelli observed that conformity reduces authority. Leaders shape group opinion. They don't follow it instantly. When you react independently, you appear thoughtful. When you follow instantly, you appear influenced. This doesn't mean opposing everything. It means pausing, observing, deciding consciously. That pause communicates independence. Independence creates respect. Another behavior, revealing irritation subtly. You may not explode in anger, but small signs appear. A deep sigh, a forced smile, a slight eye roll, a change in tone. These micro-reactions reveal emotional impact. Machiavelli believed emotional opacity protects authority. When people cannot read your irritation, they cannot control it. But when irritation leaks, they see your triggers. Now they know what bothers you, what provokes you, what destabilizes you, and consciously or unconsciously, they begin using it. Calm neutrality removes that leverage. Another public mistake. Correcting others aggressively. Someone makes a small mistake. You immediately correct them, publicly, directly, with intensity. This may appear confident, but often creates resistance. Machiavelli understood that overt correction creates enemies. It embarrasses others. It positions you as confrontational. Powerful individuals correct subtly, privately, or indirectly. They protect their authority without provoking unnecessary opposition. Because authority is not just about appearing strong, but avoiding unnecessary hostility. Another dangerous behavior, showing eagerness to impress. You share achievements quickly, mention connections, highlight knowledge, speak with urgency. This eagerness reveals insecurity, because those confident in their position don't need to impress immediately. They allow others to discover their value. Machiavelli admired figures whose reputation preceded them, not those who built it verbally. When you try to impress, you reveal the need to be validated, and that need weakens perception. Calm confidence does the opposite. It allows silence. It allows others to ask. It allows intrigue, and intrigue creates influence. Another subtle mistake, laughing after your own statements. You say something, then laugh, as if seeking approval. This behavior softens your statement. It signals uncertainty. Machiavelli understood that certainty strengthens authority. When you say something calmly, without seeking reaction, it carries weight. But when you laugh immediately, you weaken your own words. You turn a statement into a request for validation, and people sense it instantly. Another behavior that silently invites disrespect. Explaining your boundaries emotionally. Someone crosses a line. You explain why it hurt. You justify your feelings. You over-communicate. This emotional explanation weakens the boundary. Machiavelli believed boundaries should be calm, minimal, firm. You don't need long explanations. A short, calm response creates stronger impact, because brevity communicates certainty. Over-explanation communicates doubt. Finally, the most dangerous mistake, trying to win every interaction. You argue to prove you're right. You debate every point. You challenge constantly. This behavior seems strong, but it drains authority. Machiavelli understood that true power doesn't need constant victory. It chooses battles strategically. When you try to win everything, you appear defensive, competitive, insecure. But when you allow small things to pass, you appear confident, detached, in control. This detachment creates psychological superiority. People respect those who don't need to prove themselves constantly. These public behaviors seem small, almost invisible, but together, they form your image. And that image determines everything, whether people interrupt you, whether they listen, whether they challenge you, whether they respect you. Machiavelli didn't focus on morality. He focused on perception. He understood that power exists in how others see you, and public behavior shapes that perception instantly. When you stop shrinking, you appear confident. When you tolerate silence, you appear composed. When you react slowly, you appear controlled. When you speak less, you appear thoughtful. These signals accumulate. They build reputation, and reputation becomes authority. Most people never consciously analyze these behaviors. They simply feel them. They sense who is confident, who is uncertain, who is stable, who is reactive, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. This is why some people command respect without trying. Their public behavior signals control, mystery, calmness, and others unknowingly weaken themselves through small reactions, small movements, small habits. Machiavelli understood that power is rarely loud. It's quiet, observant, minimal. And once you internalize this, you begin moving differently. You stop filling silence. You stop reacting instantly. You stop trying to impress. You stop shrinking. And slowly, People respond differently. They hesitate before challenging you. They listen more carefully. They respect your presence, not because you demanded it, but because you projected it. There is one final behavior, the most subtle one, and yet the most powerful. It doesn't involve speaking. It doesn't involve reacting. It doesn't involve posture. It involves how you leave an interaction. Machiavelli understood that the last impression often defines the entire memory. People don't remember every detail of a conversation. They remember how it ended. They remember the emotional tone, the final image, the last behavior. And one of the worst things you can do in public is lingering too long. You stay after the conversation is finished. You keep adding unnecessary comments. You repeat points. You try to extend the interaction. This lingering communicates something dangerous. It signals you don't control your exit. Powerful individuals leave deliberately. They don't wait for attention to fade. They don't overstay. They end conversations calmly and move on. This creates psychological weight because scarcity creates value. When you remain too long, you dilute your presence. Your words lose impact. Your energy fades. People begin disengaging mentally. But when you leave at the right moment, your presence lingers in memory. Machiavelli admired rulers who appeared briefly, spoke minimally, and departed. Their absence created curiosity. Their presence gained importance. This is psychological timing. Knowing when to stop, knowing when to leave, knowing when silence is stronger than continuation. Another overlooked mistake, seeking the last word. Someone disagrees. You respond. They respond again. And you keep going, trying to end with victory. This behavior weakens authority, because needing the last word reveals insecurity. Machiavelli understood that true dominance doesn't chase closure. It allows unresolved tension. It walks away calmly. When you don't need the last word, you appear confident, detached, unbothered, and that detachment creates psychological superiority. Another dangerous public habit, showing relief when attention moves away from you. Conversation shifts, and you visibly relax. Your posture changes. You disengage. This communicates discomfort with attention. Machiavelli believed authority requires comfort and visibility. When someone appears relieved to escape attention, they signal avoidance. But when someone remains composed, whether observed or not, they appear stable. Stability builds trust. Trust builds respect. Another subtle mistake, reacting differently depending on who's watching. You behave confidently with some people, but shrink around others. You change tone. You change posture. You change presence. This inconsistency weakens authority. Machiavelli admired figures whose behavior remained constant. Whether facing nobles or commoners, they appeared composed. Consistency creates reliability. Reliability creates respect. When people see your confidence fluctuate, they sense insecurity. But when your calmness remains stable, you appear grounded. Another behavior, rushing to justify silence. Someone asks why you're quiet, and you immediately explain. You say you're tired, thinking, busy. This justification weakens the power of silence. Machiavelli understood silence itself is authority. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it. When you justify silence, you make it seem unnatural. But when you remain calm, silence becomes presence. People begin interpreting it as confidence. Another public mistake, smiling constantly to appear friendly. A calm, neutral expression often communicates more confidence than continuous smiling. Machiavelli observed that excessive friendliness reduces seriousness. It makes you appear eager to please. But controlled expression creates mystery. It makes people wonder what you're thinking. It adds depth. This doesn't mean avoiding warmth, but avoiding constant emotional display. Balance creates authority. Another dangerous behavior, lowering your voice when challenged. Someone questions you, and your voice softens. You speak faster. You explain more. This shift communicates uncertainty. Machiavelli understood vocal stability influences perception. When your tone remains calm, even during challenge, you appear composed. But when your voice changes, people sense insecurity. Calm tone, calm pace, minimal words. These reinforce authority. And finally, the most overlooked behavior, respecting your own time in public. You allow interruptions. You engage endlessly. You respond to everything. You never end conversations. This signals low boundaries. Machiavelli believed time control equals power. Those who decide when interactions begin and end hold psychological advantage. When you protect your time, you communicate value. When you give it freely, you reduce perceived importance. All these behaviors combine into one principle. Public behavior defines perceived power. Not wealth, not titles, not intelligence. Behavior. Machiavelli studied rulers who lost authority not through defeat, but through small public signals. They reacted emotionally. They over-explained. They sought approval. They revealed insecurity. And slowly, respect faded. Because people judge instinctively. They don't analyze consciously. They feel confidence. They feel calmness. They feel authority. And they respond accordingly. When you stop making these mistakes, something shifts. You speak less, and people listen more. You react slower, and people respect your calmness. You reveal less, and people become curious. You move deliberately, and people notice your presence. You don't demand authority. You project it. This is the essence of Machiavellian psychology. Not manipulation, but awareness. Understanding how small behaviors shape perception. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to impress. You don't need to speak constantly. You only need control. Control of reactions. Control of words. Control of presence. Control of silence. And once you master that, public interactions change. People hesitate before challenging you. They value your words more. They respect your boundaries. They sense calm confidence. Not because you forced it, but because you demonstrated it. Machiavelli understood something timeless. Power is rarely loud. It's quiet, deliberate, composed. It's the person who doesn't rush, the person who doesn't overreact, the person who doesn't seek approval, the person who moves through public spaces, calm, observant, controlled. And when you stop doing these 9 things in public, you begin to become that person. Not louder, not more aggressive, but more respected. Because in the end, people don't respect those who try to appear powerful. They respect those who never need to. And that is the quiet power Machiavelli understood.